Welcome to Let's Talk Merrimack. I'm your host for today, Mary Beth Raven. I've lived here in Merrimack for over 30 years, raised my 2 kids here, and still live here with my husband. The goal of the show is to talk about things that concern Merrimack residents and encourage you to get involved in the town. Now, today's show focuses on the experience of being a New Hampshire State Representative, and I'm joined by my guest, Rosemarie Rung.
Hi, Mary Beth. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, so nice to have you. I do want to provide a little bit of background for the folks in Merrimack and let them know that our town of Merrimack has 8 representatives that go to Concord, and all 8 represent everybody. So it's not like you're my rep because you live around the corner or anything like that, right?
Correct. Merrimack is one voting district, one state rep district. There's other large districts like ours. Hudson, for example, Londonderry has a lot of reps. But if you go to like the city of Nashua, which has a much larger population than Merrimack, they have reps by their ward. So they may only have 2 or 3 reps per ward. But Merrimack is a larger town, so we have 8.
Okay, yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that because a lot of times, right, I'll get email that says, call your rep, and I'm like, I guess I have to call all 8 of them.
Yeah, it is. I treat in my role as a representative, I serve everybody. So it's not as though I may bounce something off another rep. I pretty much take responsibility for any constituent who comes to me with a concern. But there are times when there might be an issue that's kind of out of my wheelhouse, so I may defer it to another rep. For instance, Nancy Murphy is very well versed in health and criminal justice and special education. So if there's a concern or proposed bill in those areas, I usually will ask her if she'll take it on.
Okay. All right, so tell me a little bit about, you've been a rep since 2018?
Correct.
So that's like 4?
I'm in my 4th term.
4th term.
Yep, 8th year.
All right, awesome. So talk to us a little bit about your role as a state rep. Like, what are your responsibilities?
Okay, well, every state rep, almost all state reps are assigned to a policy committee. And that's where most of the work gets done. When bills are introduced and they're assigned to a committee based on their area, the committee members will hold a public hearing, discuss the bill, and vote on a recommendation, whether it should pass or fail or if it needs more study. And then whatever their recommendation is goes to the full House for a vote. So for many years I was on the Resources, Recreation, and Development Policy Committee. So I discussed bills, studied bills relating to water quality, the state park system, land development, land use. And then I was on municipal and county government for a year, and that was fun because it was a different topic and I learned a lot, and great colleagues. But this term I'm on House Finance, which is not a policy committee per se, but all the bills that are going to cost the state money or cost towns money have to go through our committee after they've gone through the policy committee. Because we have such a large volume of bills, we're split up into 3 divisions. So I'm assigned to Division 1. So we hold the public hearings, and we'll vote recommendations that instead of those recommendations going to the full House, they go to the full Finance Committee. And we'll then vote. Then our vote then goes to the full House. So it's set up a little bit different. There's another layer of review that goes on, but it makes it a more efficient process.
Okay. So does each rep only get one committee, or do you ever have to work on more than one committee?
There are some reps that serve on multiple committees. I know of a colleague who was on Recreation, Resources, and Development, but he was also on Fish and Game. And a former rep from Merrimack, who was a long-term rep, the Honorable Bob LaRue, he was on Fish and Game for years and years, but there was an opening on Resources that needed to be filled, and so he did double duty for a year.
Okay, interesting. All right. So what motivated you to run for office when you first did, and what continues to motivate you?
Oh, well, I first got involved in public service when I was at that time, my middle child was going off to 1st grade. And I was really concerned with what was going on at the school board at the time. Now, this was in the 90s. It was a long time ago. And so I ran for school board, and I served on the school board for 9 years, and I really liked being in a position where I can bring about some change and I could represent people instead of them trying to fight City Hall or go against the man. You know, I could be a conduit to make things easier for them to get a resolution to a problem or bring an idea forward. So I loved being on the school board, but I was working, and that time I had 3 children, so I really couldn't handle everything. There's only 24 hours in a day. So I left that position and I just kind of did my thing. And then I think it was in early 2018, I was on a beach and I got a call from a friend and she said, "Hey, would you like to run for state rep?" And at this time, we were in the whole midst of the PFAS contamination. It was still a very, very fresh, very raw issue for our community. And one of the things that concerned me was the lack of scientific literacy among people who were in policymaking positions. And it kind of irked me. And so when she had suggested I run, I thought, you know what, I think I should do that because I had a career as an analytical chemist. So I kind of understood the chemistry of PFAS and what was going on. Very surprised at the detection limit. At first I thought, oh, this must be a lab error because the detection limits were so low, but the technology of the analysis had proceeded so fast by that time. So I ran. I was very, very fortunate and honored to be elected, and I still, I'm still in it. I still enjoy it.
Okay, awesome. So as a rep, now I just want to remind everybody, right, New Hampshire basically has like a citizen legislature where you are paid a whopping $100 and gas money. So it's not like, while this is a full-time job, it's not one that could support your family.
Yes.
How many hours a week do you typically work, and what does a typical day look like for you as a state rep?
Oh, there's really no typical day. It's very different, but the bills get assigned to committees the beginning of January. And for finance, it's also different for us because we work on a biennium. Our state budget is at biennium. So the first year of the biennium, we're developing the budget. And on finance, it's like a full-time job until probably middle of March. And then the budget goes to the full House and it goes to the Senate. And then we're kind of in a spot now where all those bills that had fiscal notes that are going to cost money, they are now coming to finance. And my division tends to get most of the bills, at least this year they are. So I would say on average, it's maybe 2 days a week that I'm in Concord. Sometimes it's 3. It also depends if I filed bills, because if I've actually sponsored bills, I introduce it at a public hearing, and then I'm usually there to talk to committee members to try to, ask them for their support and convince them why it's a good bill. So it varies, but I would say from January until May, 1 to 3 days a week is probably typical, and then pretty much the summers, we're not doing too much. The days we aren't in Concord, I'm busy talking to constituents, reading background material, reading about bills that I'm going to have to make a recommendation on. So there's a lot of homework like that to do, but there's more flexibility in how I use that time. I can do a lot of things when there's a basketball game on or things like that.
Okay. So you just answered my next question. So what's the most challenging part of managing your time between legislative work, constituent, listening, and personal life?
It really isn't too bad. I'm very, very fortunate. My husband is very supportive of this, and we've always had a really great partnership. So we've shared duties. So if I have a late day, dinner's ready when I get home, laundry's done, stuff like that. I would say the most challenging part is on some bills just really understanding the nature of the bill. And budget-wise, it can be very, very complicated. Our budget's like this thick. And so especially where I'm a rookie on that committee, really kind of understanding how money is allocated from what accounts, how different things get funded, the whole interplay with the federal government funding, because about, I think, 45% of our budget is provided by the federal government. It comes in through Medicaid funding. So really understanding the intricacies of that is kind of a challenge to pick that up quickly enough to a level where I can speak to the budget and I can feel comfortable in making a recommendation, know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So that's more of a challenge. But you know, sometimes trying to convince people to support a bill, other reps, may take more education. But for the most part, I have a good working relationship with representatives on all sides of the aisles. I've tended to form really close alliances with people who share the same passion that I do, and it's pretty much about environmental issues, water quality issues. So we tend to work together on bills.
Okay. Okay. So now tell me what it's really like. Like I've already mentioned, you know, I'll get emails or something that says, call your state rep about this, that, or the other thing. And I will admit I have very rarely actually called, because even though I'm on this like little talk show, there's something that makes me really nervous to pick up the phone. But I have emailed you, and I've emailed all 8 of you many times. So like, how many emails do you really get? And does your phone ring off the hook?
The phone is once in a while. Not a lot. I love getting phone calls from people because it's different when you're hearing a voice, and usually you hear their emotion and their struggle, or you know, their enthusiasm about something. But usually when I get calls from a constituent, they have an issue, they have a problem, and they want my help. So I like that one-to-one connection that you can make on a phone call that sometimes is missing in an email. The emails, it all depends, Mary Beth, if there's a big bill coming up. Now, we voted last week on an open enrollment bill. I had literally hundreds of emails from people. When they come through our server, our general court server, which is the server that serves this House and the Senate, it says bulk on it. And they're all the same. They're cookie cutter. You know, I don't know, people must go have a website and they must say, contact your rep, and you hit a button and it pre-populates the email with a message. So if you've read one, you've read them all. I try, if I have time, I go down. If it's from somebody from Merrimack, I'll respond. But the most effective emails are ones that say, I'm your constituent, help with this, or I'm a constituent, please support this bill, or and it's from their first person story, like this really affects me. For instance, we had a bill that would disband the car inspection requirement. And I heard from people on both sides of the issue. And the ones that resonated were hey, I don't have a lot of money, I'm just getting by, please support this bill because I can never pass because of rust. And it, you know, that story resonated with me. But then you hear, hey, I was in an accident because somebody's brakes failed, and that's probably going to be worse if you get rid of car inspection. So please don't, vote against that, repeal. So when I hear constituent stories, those kind of get my attention. But there's sometimes some emails just fall through the cracks. If it's a very well publicized bill, where I'm getting all those bulk messages, it's really hard to sometimes weed out. But the shorter the message, the better, with a very unique subject line, like I'm a constituent, I live in South Merrimack, or something that I know.
So it sounds like it would be great if you could get the gist just from reading the subject so that you could decide if...
Absolutely, yeah, okay. And shorter messages are better. I mean, some of these long messages, I just don't have the time. But it's... I love hearing from constituents because I'm elected to represent them, so I need to know what's on their mind and what's important to them.
Okay. So what is your favorite part about being a state rep?
I think solving people's problems, the constituent service. I remember during COVID, I had a lot of people reach out to me because they were having struggles getting unemployment insurance. And I discovered this woman that works at the Department of Insurance, and she had signage authority, and which was key because she had the ability to approve something. She wasn't high up on the food chain, but she was high enough, and I was able to solve a lot of people's problems that way. And last year I had run into a woman who was a chaperone on a 4th grade field trip to the State House. And when she was leaving, she took me aside and she says, "I'll never forget how you helped me get unemployment benefits."
Wow.
And so those are the things that really mean a lot to me when in this position, is being able to help people.
Wow. All right, so now what's your least favorite part about being a state rep?
I don't really think I have one. I'm trying to think. Well, sometimes if we have very long days, the seats in Reps Hall aren't that comfortable if you've been there for
I've been
4
there,
or 5 hours. And if you're hearing speeches where they're saying the same thing over and over again, and they're not really adding anything new to the debate, it can get a little bit tiresome. But other than that, I really enjoy being a state rep.
Okay. Okay. So what skills do you find to be most useful to you in this job? And I don't know, maybe you should start with, I don't know what your background was before this, Well, you said chemist, something about
Yes,
chemistry.
I have a degree in biochemistry, and I worked for several years as an analytical chemist. And I think that is the biggest skill I bring to this, because I like to have things being data driven. I like to have evidence to make a decision, and a factual basis to decision making. And so often things are driven by outside agendas or emotion or passion, or just it's fueled by these things that really have no basis. And so I like to bring that analytical ability to analyzing a bill. And then I like working with people, and I learned so much from people I disagree with. Sometimes we tend to spend time with people that are just like us or that agree with us, but I find I learn a lot more. I think I'm better because I like to spend time with people I disagree with. That cadre of lake reps, who work with me on lake and water quality issues, they're very conservative Republicans, and I've just learned a lot on how to find the sweet spot where we can all agree on something and start from there. So I think that's something I wish a lot of other reps did, that they weren't opposed to working across the aisle. I mean, some people have very divisive opinions about things, but there's usually something we can agree on, and at least start from there and then move forward.
Okay. All right. So speaking of that, I was just going to ask, do you work with other representatives from both major parties, and how important is bipartisan work to you?
I think bipartisanship is important, because I think we're public servants and we serve the public, and we're not doing anything to help them if we can't move forward. So we have to find some common ground, and that can only be done in bipartisanship. I love being a member of the Democratic caucus, because we have a motto that you live by your conscience first, then you make decisions based on what's best for your constituents, and then you vote your caucus. So we're not driven by, or we're not pressured by our caucus to vote a certain way. There's a lot of freedom and liberty to vote your conscience. And many times I vote against what the Democrats have recommended on a bill, just because it's not so good for Merrimack. And so, I have to kind of look at everything that way. But I do have friends on the Republican side. It has changed a lot since I was first elected in 2018. There was a lot more cooperation in the House between Democrats and Republicans. It's become much more divided. There's a lot of rhetoric and just things that aren't helpful to move it forward. But I'm hoping that changes. I hope this is just the worst of it. And I think, the pendulum swings in politics, and I'm hoping it kind of swings away from where people attack each other or engage in hateful speech. So I'm hoping it moves forward.
Okay. I think you mentioned when you were talking about the committees that you were on, and you when a bill comes up, you sit and listen to people talk about it, and people give testimony. That word testimony is kind of scary to me, because the only other place I ever hear testimony is like in a legal courtroom, like when somebody's on trial. So what is it really like to listen to testimony and give testimony? Like, is it only experts? Is it, average people?
It's interesting you say that, Mary Beth, because that's kind of my pet peeve. We call it testimony, but nobody swears to an oath before they speak to the committee. So, I mean, there's been people that have blatantly lied in their testimony because they really want to push their position.
A certain position.
Right. But it's typically when I was on a policy committee, we would usually hear from, you hear from the sponsoring state rep, and then usually other state reps come in that are supporting it. And then we hear from the agency representatives. So for instance, many of the bills I hear are, they're environmentally related. So we may hear from the director of water for the Department of Environmental Services. So we'll hear from people at the state level who it would be their job to implement the law and enforce it. So we get their perspective, which is critically important. And then we hear from the public. Sometimes we'll hear from the public first. It all depends. It's up to the chair to decide the order of who we're going to hear from during a public hearing. But I think everybody adds a different element to the discussion. And I find if it's a public, somebody from the public speaking on an inflatable raft bill, to me, that perspective is as important to me in my decision making as hearing from somebody from Marine Patrol that would have to implement the law.
Interesting. Okay. So how do you stay informed about all these issues, right? I mean, you've been on 3 different committees now. I mean, it's different than if you're on one committee, you can kind of develop expertise in one area. How do you manage to stay up to date enough on all these issues?
Well, I've given up remembering bill numbers. We have over 1,000 bills this year. So if somebody says, what's your position on 1606? I'm like, I have no clue what that bill is. Tell me what the substance is. Bills that come to finance, I understand. I've read the bill. I've read committee reports when it was in the policy committee, what they thought of it. But other bills, the committee reports are very important because there'll be a majority report and a minority report. So if a bill comes out of committee, the majority that voted for either to live or to be killed, they explain why, and then the minority explains why they were opposed to that position. So those are good ways of understanding a bill. I've been in the House now 8 years, and I know a lot of state reps, the different committees they're on. So usually there's somebody on a committee that I trust, that I know is going to be well informed, and I may call them and say, what's the story about this bill? I had a constituent that has an issue with it, and they'll give me their perspective of having listened to the testimony, read the reports. A lot of the agencies that testify, they also will submit a letter explaining their position or just giving more background on the bill to help us understand the impact of it more.
Okay. All right, so let's have some fun now and get to know you a little bit more as a rep. I've got a couple questions for you. So what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of running for office?
Do it. Do it. Just, I feel it's only a 2-year commitment. It's not year round. Depending on the committee you're at, you can work, hopefully you can work around it. You really have to plan on Thursdays. But I think just having normal, regular people there who aren't there as their profession, I think just brings a freshness, a new perspective that I think is important. I think everybody should have to be a state rep at one point or another.
Actually, that's a really good idea, right? Because it's a citizen legislature.
Right.
Everybody should do at least 1 2-year term.
Sure.
Very interesting. Yeah. So what's your favorite beach in New Hampshire?
Oh, gosh.
Fresh or salt?
Well, I like Hampton Beach because, for Salt Beach, I like Hampton because the people watching is incredible. I love it, and it's a good beach to walk. You can walk, pretty long distance. As far as, lake beaches, we have a camp in Moultonborough on Lake Kanasaka, and I love that because it's a place where we can just hang out in the summer. We can only use it a few months out of the year. We're just about ready to go up there. It's still cold up there, but it's just there's no maintenance. It's so little. There's you can't do it. There's no yard to do. So you just up there and read and wade in the water.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs. Yeah.
What is it with you people?
Well, you know,
Do you have to be a dog person to be a state rep? Everybody I've asked so far has been a dog person.
Well, I had a severe cat allergy.
Okay.
So cats, I'd be sneezing. At one point, my dog had a cat. It broke out in hives. But my daughter's cat was with us for a year, and the cat really grew on me. The allergies I took medicine. The allergies kind of subsided after a couple weeks, and I remember I had to have some oral surgery done, and I was in bed. I was just like an agony. I had ice on my face, and the cat never left my side.
Aww.
So I'm warm to cats now, but dogs are still my favorite.
Okay. All right. All right. So we are just about out of time here, so I want to thank you very much, Rosemarie, for coming today. And that's our show today, and we would like to hear your ideas for future show topics. And so reach out to us at talkmerrimack@gmail.com and follow us at Talk Merrimack on Facebook and Blue Sky. I look forward to our next conversation. Thanks a lot,
Oh, that was
Rosemarie.
good. Thank you.